Myra from sacredsoulpractice.com, logging on for day 15 of our 30-day safe trauma practice series. I'm so happy that you're here. Let me know when you hop on. Hashtag here. You can also hashtag replay when you come onto the replay. Let me know that you are here so that I can celebrate you. I really appreciate all of you who have reached out to say that this series is supporting you, that you're getting a lot of value out of it. I really appreciate those of you who just send me love in the DM. I see you. I appreciate you. Thank you for reaching out. It means so much and it helps me to keep going. And so I appreciate you and wanted to just give a shout out to those of you who have reached out and said that this has supported you and that you are just holding space for me. I really appreciate you. And so today I'm just checking to see if we're on live on Facebook on the other gadget. I'm on my laptop. And so I think we're here. Let me just make sure we're here. Go to my page, make sure we're live. Perfect. Yay. I would love to just take a minute and ground us really quick. You might just notice your breath. You might just tap into it for just a moment. Our breath is always with us. It's a really simple tool to help to ground us. And whenever you're feeling out of sorts or even like happy and amazing, and you just have a lot of energy present, bringing attention to your breath, grounding into it. It's a simple practice to help you ground and center yourself. And so just notice your breath. Let's bring in gratitude for the breath. For this moment, for each other, for technology. And for the realization that when we step into doing the work that we are meant to do, that we feel called to do, that is on our heart to do, whatever that looks like for you, know that you are deeply supported in doing that work. Know that there are forces that are supporting you and really on your side, and really there to support you in doing your good work and doing your um, heart-centered work. And so let's dive in to day 15. We're talking about the power of decision today. We're talking about why it's important. And here's the thing. Whenever we decide to do something, I believe that all of heaven and earth get behind you to support that. The challenge becomes sometimes is that we think we've decided and we haven't. We haven't actually decided. I was here for a long time. I still am here sometimes around some things that I'm working through. When you decide something, you commit to going all in with it and you move beyond the fear. It's not that the fear goes away. You simply choose not to allow fear to be in the driver's seat of your life. When you decide to go all in on something, you really harness your energy behind it and you eliminate excuses and you eliminate all of the feelings and doubts that say you can't do it. And when I say eliminate, I don't mean that the fear and the doubt and the excuses go away. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying they're no longer allowed to lead. They no longer have the power to lead. Case in point, we all have chatter. Brene Brown calls it BS stories in her book Rising Strong. We all have these stories that support us in staying small. And it's important to learn and to know, you already know what your core stories are around certain things. If one of your core stories is fear, if one of them is self-doubt, is one of them I can't do this, now isn't the time, there would be a better time. If perfectionism is one of your stories, that's one of mine, right? That I consistently work through. You're going to have chatter around those um key points that are going to always be poking at you, right? Like a little baby chicken is going to be poking at you to do it later, not right now. When you feel better, when life is easier, when you have more time, when your hair is done, right? When your house is clean, when you lose 10 pounds, when things are better, when there's more money, when you can hire a VA, when you figure out tech, when you have more clients, then you'll do the thing, right? There's always going to be a real, when my kids are older, when things are more settled, when I get a relationship, when I move out, like there's always going to be something that is giving us this comfort to start tomorrow or to start later, right? When we make a decision, we eliminate the giving into the chatter. The chatter is still going to be there, but you shift the relationship with it. You shift how you be with it. Liz Gilbert talks about in her book Big Magic, fear never goes away. And I haven't even read the entire book, right? Just a couple chapters that were really important for me with fear and being able to shift it, being able to shift the fact.
And
that
this was, I haven't even read the
sorry.
entire book, right? Just a couple.
Just going to tag some people who are usually here, and I want to give a little shout out so they know that we're live. It's important to shift our relationship with the fear. And so when we make a decision, we are shifting how we're dancing with the emotion, whatever it is. If it's fear, if it's self doubt, if it's self sabotage, if it's procrastination, drop in the comments what your thing is, the thing that typically holds you back, the thing that typically derails you, whether it's an emotion, a habit, an excuse, a state of mind, right? Some of these states are true. Some of these states are like actual things. Those of us who have chronic illness or autoimmune situations, or we are recovering from trauma, or all of the things that people are dealing with right now. Some of us are having long COVID symptoms, or maybe things were out of remission, were in remission before COVID. That was me earlier in the year. I got COVID. So much of a relapse happened for me with this one autoimmune thing that I have, and so that became like a rabbit hole of stuff that had to happen with my health. My life didn't stop, right? The things that I care about didn't stop because I didn't feel good. And so I've learned enough now to know, okay, how am I going to lead myself through this? It might feel like a shit show. Life might feel like it's all over the place. Okay, fine. How am I going to consciously decide to lead myself despite what things look like, despite the fact that this is a hard season? How am I going to lead myself? This is an important question that we all need to be asking honestly every day. And the truth is, for many of us who are trying to do something in the world, right? Like be the best version of ourselves, raise kids, grow a business, start a business, be healthier in our relationships, be healthier for ourselves, heal trauma, wherever you land in that spectrum. Every day we have to decide how we're going to consciously lead ourselves, because most of us don't just wake up and decide to be the best versions of ourselves, right? Many of us have this inner teenager part who wants to do whatever they want to do, right? They don't want to do anything sometimes productive. They want to sleep all day. They want to, like, if you're mine, eat ice cream, right? It's vegan, but still, like, all the things that are not moving me towards my goals. Now, self care is important. Downtime is important. Doing nothing is important. We need that. It's not being lazy. It's not being in self sabotage mode to rest, to have downtime, to go off the grid and just recalibrate. That's so, so needed. And many of us have a part who would rather do anything other than what we need to be doing to move towards our goal and towards the life that we want, right? So, all of that to say, the power of a decision will change your life. When you decide to do something, you eliminate, you move past all of the thoughts and reasons that tell you that you can't do it. Many of these parts are not wanting to um, derail you per se, but they want you to stay small because that's where they feel safe. And when I say parts, again, if you're catching on for maybe the first time, talking about these parts of our psyche that are developed when we're young and when we do not have our prefrontal cortex all of the way fully developed. And so we begin to develop these parts that help us to hold the burden of trauma, of big emotion, of things that are out of our control, that's going on in our environment. And so these parts develop like a protector part, a critical part, a self doubt part, a procrastination part, right? Like a neurodivergent part. All of these different parts can develop to help us cope, and it's brilliant, really, if we think about it, that these parts protect our psyche and often protect us from having a mental breakdown, to be quite honest. But as we get older, as we move into adulthood, and as we move through different stages of development, these same parts that protected us so much in childhood can begin to hold us back in adulthood because the ways that we coped as a child, maladaptive ways, right, are not always super helpful as an adult. So that's where the incongruency happens. That's where this tug of war begins to happen within ourselves. This interpersonal tug of war of like a part of me wants to move forward and a part of me doesn't. A part of me wants to leave the toxic situation, but a part of me is comfortable. In at least knowing what to expect, right? A part of me wants to commit to my goal, my vision. A part of me wants to hide and shrink and not be fully invested in my goal, in the outcome that I want, in my desired outcome. We all have parts, right? It doesn't make us crazy. It's not multiple personality disorder that was talked about in the 90s on Oprah, right? Sybil and all of that. It's not that. It's these parts of our personality that are young, that did not complete a stage of development, right? And who are really needing resources. They're needing internal resources to help them release control so that your adult self can be in this adult seat of your life, right? My one-on-one clients and I do this work around really helping you to get in your adult seat, to tend to your parts, to bring comfort to them, resources, validation, acknowledgement, right? Emotional justice, I call it, and also making a firm decision to lead from your adult self. So when you've made the decision to do the thing that you want to do, whatever it is, it could be super small, it can be super big, it doesn't matter. It's relative. It's just whatever's important to you, whatever your next step is. When we do that, oftentimes the parts of ourselves that are scared, that are vulnerable, that are feeling as though we can't do it, and if we do, we might ruin all parts of our life, right? Those parts are going to come up. That fear and doubt, sometimes shame, right? Sometimes past trauma around visibility in whatever area. If it's being more visible in our relationships, if it's standing up for ourselves, if it's speaking up for ourselves and using our voice, if it's setting boundaries, if it's enforcing the boundaries, if it's giving consequences if our boundaries are not honored. All of these edgy parts, when we really start to push them, can push back, and that's going to create resistance. So, shrinking can often feel really comfortable and really safe, even if we don't like it, even if we don't like what it produces for us. It can feel safer than moving beyond it and going towards the thing that we ultimately want. How to move through it. It's important to bring in safety. When we have experienced trauma, sometimes we don't feel safe. And if we're still healing that, if we're still on that journey of resolving it, if we're still shifting our relationship with how we be with it, right? Healing is evolution. Sometimes I believe it takes a lifetime to really move through something, but there are different stages of healing where you feel more resolved and more resourced, right? And so when we're still on that journey, oftentimes it can be really easy to just default to playing small, shrinking, and hiding. It takes a decision to move past that. So when we think about how we support our clients, how we support ourselves, how we really decide how we want to take up more space in the world around our work, around building our business, or creating your passion project or your side hustle, it takes a real decision to say, what am I going to commit to seeing through? Following through for a period of time, maybe 90 days, 6 months, a year. How am I really going to dial in, commit, go deep in this one area to create the change that I wish to see? It requires a decision. And this is why it can be so hard for those of us, myself included, who are trauma survivors. We have to really reprogram in the many ways our entire nervous system in order to create change, because trauma itself helps us to not feel safe. Trauma itself teaches us that the world is not safe, that change is not always safe, that we are powerless often. Like, that's really the beliefs and the um paradigms that are created when trauma happens. And so when we think about doing the opposite of that, of pushing our edge around that, of course, resistance is going to come up because we're changing, we're up leveling, we're really growing our consciousness. And that takes bravery. It's also vulnerable AF. It's also risky, right? Because oftentimes it's easier to stay in what you know than creating a change, but you don't know what the outcome is going to be. You know what you hope it's going to be. You can have your intention, and I believe in intentional intention setting and living an intentional life. But even with that, we can still get scared. Change can be scary until we normalize that change is simply a part of life. And so when we look at why shrinking and why hiding, and this is in any part of your life, can feel safer, we have to really tap into when trauma happens, it hijacks the way that we think, our nervous system, our impulse control. It hijacks really being able to tune in and ground. It hijacks the way that we see the world. And so, knowledge is power, right? When we don't realize that these are trauma responses, when we think that it's just how we show up. For a long time, I thought that my brain was broken. I was like, why can't I create this result in my life? I've read the books, I've done the things, and when I sat down to really focus on creating the effect each day or following through with the whatever it is, the list, the actual action, I found myself getting stuck, getting overwhelmed, shutting down. And what I really had to learn and get support around was that That's what trauma does to our brain. So we have to reprogram and bring in safety and grounding, um, and really stabilization before we can talk about creating change. And so once we've done that, it still can be really edgy, but now we have a foundation to build on. And so if you're needing support around that, please feel free to reach out. We can see how working together really might support you in doing that, because for so long, I was trying to build something on a foundation that wasn't solid. And I was wearing myself out. I was burning my adrenals out. I was like spinning my wheels when I had the best of intentions. And so it's taken me a long time to really learn how to reprogram your nervous system in a way that doesn't take you out of the game while you're doing it. And so that's one thing. The other thing is, when we think about post traumatic stress and what it can do to our identity, when we experience trauma, it really changes the way that we think about ourselves, the world, other people, what's possible for us, what's safe and what's not safe. It impacts all of that. So when we talk about creating changes in our own lives, if that's the blueprint, you see where there's discrepancy. That discrepancy is what makes creating change difficult. That's why the power of a decision is so much more important. And it's important to learn how to ground into that decision in ways that are safe and that promote emotion regulation while you're changing and shifting and growing and creating what you desire in the world. The other thing that I want to mention is that trauma really impacts our life source, and we really have to find ways to protect our life source. We have to learn energy management. We have to learn really how to be in our own energy and create bodily autonomy and energetic boundaries, something that's totally just taken offline when trauma happens, especially when we experience early trauma. All of those boundaries and that sense of safety gets disrupted. And so it really takes bringing that in healthy ways before we really can create substantial change in our life, or before we can really create intentionally something that is bigger than us, that's beyond us. And it takes a great deal of courage. And so if you feel like you've been behind or falling off track or derailing yourself or sabotaging yourself, you're not alone, and you're not crazy. You're not a glutton for punishment, though sometimes it can feel like that. You are simply stuck in trauma responses, and there are ways to work through that, to really resolve that, and to give you tools to help you know if that's your tendency. There are ways to learn to recognize that and course correct faster, sooner, before you've been taken out for 6 months, right? Before you even realize, oh, this is always where things go left. There's really ways to work through that. And so I'm excited to be able to work with you and share that, if you're a practitioner or a therapist or a healer, to have those tools for yourself and for your clients in the program that we're going to launch this month. So stay tuned for that. The other thing that's really important is that um, you are not what happened to you, and you're not the trauma response itself. So when we think about post grad school, when I was in like my baby job, right? We often really help people to understand that you are not your addiction. You are not your mental illness. You are not your symptoms. And that's so true. It stands true, like it's true in all of time. We're not those things. And there comes a point where we have to take responsibility for how we're showing up and with what's not working. We're not our illness. We're not our unhealthy habits. We're not our trauma responses. But when those things are holding us back, it's important to take responsibility for how we're showing up and what part of us needs support in order to show up intentionally on purpose and not trapped in that trauma response. And so it's really important to delineate between we are not the thing that holds us back. And there comes a point where we're called to reckon with the thing, the part of us that is essentially holding us back. Both things are true. We also want to think about the way that a PTSD kind of brain works, right? And I have worked on healing my PTSD brain for over 20 years now. So I get how hard the transformation and the healing process can be on any given day, to be quite honest. It's important to know that when you're stuck in a trauma response, it can be challenging to be logical. It can be. And we are being asked to look at what's not working with honesty. If we keep doing the same thing and getting the same response, it can be easy to want to blame everybody and everything else. Personal responsibility is saying, I may not have caused this, right? Like, I may not have caused the issue that's here. And what am I going to do to change it? Mel Robbins talks about, and it's so true, no one's coming to save you. No one's coming. Even for those of us who believe in a higher power, God, Jesus, all of the things, right? In each and every day on earth, we have to practically live our life, right? And though I believe in grace, and though I believe in miracles, and though I believe in the power of a strong spiritual practice, all of those things I believe give you peace, an edge. They give you, they just help you make ways out of no ways. Even in all of that, there are practical things that we have to do on earth to live a life. And no one's coming to do those things for you. No one's coming to remind you to do those things. And no one's going to um, roll out the red carpet, right? The way that some of us parents are with our little kids, right? Just doing everything for them. No one's doing that for adults, honestly, right? And so sometimes when we grew up in trauma or experience severe trauma, there's a part of us, some call it an orphan part, who really is looking for and waiting for someone to come save them. It's such an innocent part. It's a part that is vulnerable and really is looking for a parent or a caregiver or a loved one to come rescue them. And it's an innocent desire. It's an innocent it's an innocent thought. And the truth is no one's coming. And so when we realize that, we can take personal responsibility in creating the changes that we're wanting with support, with help, right? We don't have to be a one person show. And no one can do the work for us. Even when we have a therapist or a coach or a mentor, they can walk with us on our path, but they can't walk the path for us. So personal responsibility is key to making changes and really making empowered decisions that can stand the test of time. Harry says, why do we end up thinking someone's going to do that? It's really just like this childlike part of us who believes in fairy tales. A lot of it is societal. Many of us grew up with Disney movies and just this idea of like there being someone who was going to come save us, a fairy godmother, a knight in shining armor. The parent who wasn't there was going to come back and save us. The parent who was there but wasn't emotionally available was going to magically just get that availability and be able to give it to us, right? It's magical thinking, really. It all boils down to magical thinking. And it's not that we're completely alone in our journey or in our effort. We're not. I believe that we are supported by infinite presence, spirit. I feel like there are lots of ways that we are supported once we decide. I think miracles really happen every day if we train ourselves to see them. And the reality is, whatever you want for your life, you're going to have to create it. And that's a truth sometimes that we don't want to accept. When we invest in, a book, a coach, a mentor, a therapist, a program, whatever it is, we still have to do the work. Are there things that happen when we take action? Yes. Are there magically aligned things that happen when we decide? Yes. But when we talk about long term um, goals, when we talk about creating substantial change in our life that's sustainable, right? That's not this get rich quick scheme, or not this like lose 100 pounds in 100 days, right? Not that mentality. When we're talking about sustainable change, it's, as one of my mentors says, it's about chopping wood and carrying water. It's about the daily practices, the consistent habits, the things that we do consistently that get us the result. And so when we make a decision to create something, to show up as our best selves, to really commit to a change, it's so important to decide why it's important to you, what it's going to cost you if you continue to not do it, to put it off, to hide, to shrink, to not follow through. Because here's the thing also, sometimes we think that it's going to be easier later. It's not. Sometimes we think, I'm not strong enough right now. And sometimes that might be true. But the other reality is, if we're waiting for something to suck less, that day might not come, right? When I had a car accident and had to learn to walk again, every day was so painful. And every day my thought was, I don't feel like doing this. I was never going to feel like doing it. Embracing the pain and moving through it was what got me to the other side of it. There was never a day where there wasn't pain. And if I had waited on it not being painful, I wouldn't have learned to walk again. Like, it wouldn't have happened, and I would have been bedridden and miserable, right? And not mentally stable, because that isn't how I wanted to live, right? And so the reality was, rehab and doing the exercises and embracing the pain and learning to move through it was the way through it. I could have given up, and there were days where I did, but I realized that wasn't going to help me ultimately create the life that I wanted. And so when we think about committing to what we say we want, we have to put skin in the game. And it's really important sometimes to embrace gentleness about the fact it's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. We're going to fall. We're going to fall on our face. We're going to skin our knees. We're going to, spend money that we don't have. We're going to feel like it was a waste. We're going to mess up. We're going to burn the dinner. That it's not gonna work out with some people. We're gonna feel like we're falling all over the place because we're learning something new. Hi, Karen. We're learning something new. And when we learn something new, if babies gave up walking because they kept falling down, none of us would ever learn to walk. Babies will fall down 1,000 times and they'll get right back up because they have decided that hell or high water, they're going to learn to walk. And so they put their head down and focus until they master it. That's really the spirit that we have to take on when we decide to create a change in our life. when we decide to grow our business or up level some area of our life or really become the kind of person that we know we can be. It's the same mentality that's required to really heal and resolve trauma. It's committing to getting to the other side of this by going through the swamp, by going through the pain, by going through the messy middle and coming out on the other side. Some of you I know will say, I feel like I've been stuck in the messy middle forever. Sometimes it feels like that. And it can be important to look at where you're stuck, what's not working. Are there areas where you're lying to yourself, honestly? And I know that sounds like really direct, but it's true. Sometimes we are lying to ourselves about what we want, what we don't want, what we're willing to do. Um, there's a book that's important, I think, for some of us who really need a more direct approach. It's called Unfuck Yourself, I think. Unfuck Your Life, something like that. I'll drop it in the comments below. And one of the things that he talks about is sometimes we have to get honest about what we want and what we don't want. He says some of the things that we say we want, we don't want because we're not willing to commit to it. And so it's a much more gentle approach to simply say, I thought I wanted that, but I don't, because I'm not willing to commit to the result, than trying to make ourselves want it and do it when that's not really what we're wanting, right? So it's important to get clear about what we want. And when we decide that, then we are faced with making a decision to go all in and commit to it. There are tools and practices that support you with going all in and helping your clients do the same and letting go of the excuses, letting go of the resistance, letting go of the, I need someone to come save me, I need someone to come do it for me, like, woe is me, letting go of that part of ourselves who is stuck in the self sabotage. And also normalizing that it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to feel that way. But um, that way of thinking can't lead. It can't be in the driver's seat. We have all sorts of parts of ourselves. They're all different ages. They're all different developmental stages. And the reality is, no one can be in the driver's seat of your life except for the adult part of you. If anyone's in the driver's seat other than your adult part, there's probably areas that you don't like, that you're not happy with, that you're um, simply like feeling as though it's the result is unacceptable. Any area where you're not happy with the result, I would look at what part of you is leading that part of your life. That's where the magic will be in helping to shift it. Because when the adult part of you is leading, you do what needs to be done, you focus, you streamline, you stop trying to do 5,000 things. You commit to the one or two things you're really going to focus on. You focus until you get the result and you begin to move forward with something else, right? You admit when you need help, you admit when you need support, and you get it. You might not like it. You might have to move a mountain to be able to pay for it, right? You might have to get creative. Whatever you have to do, you're going to do it because you want it. And if you're unable to commit and do those things, you have to question, how much do you want it? And how tied are you to ways that aren't working? For a long time, I wanted um, something to be different, something to be like magical around time management, around structure, around systems, around so many things that didn't come natural to me. And the truth was, when I was journaling one night with myself, just journaling out all the excuses, as I read them, it was like I was talking to like a young child, like a 5-year-old who really felt committed to the fact that she shouldn't have to do these things. And I really felt so much compassion for her because I realized that this part of me was young and had to be the adult since a really young age. And she was burned out and she was tired of being an adult and of adulting and of doing these adult things, right? I had to bring compassion and validation and normalize how this part of me felt. And I had to also set with, do I want this result as much as I say I do? If I do, am I willing to move through the pain of becoming the kind of person who either does the thing or gets help to do the thing so that I can move forward in my life? It can't be both. It can't be crying over results that I don't have because I didn't focus and create that result. And sometimes we want to give ourselves a pity party, which only keeps us stuck. And I'm not anti pity party. Sometimes we need one, but it needs to be time limited. We need to give ourselves time to have the meltdown, to have the cry, to like do whatever we need to do, and then come back to, what's my decision? How am I going to align myself with the decision that I've made and move forward? And so when we really think about what it is to make a decision, it's, as Tony Robbins would say, we burn all the boats to all other paths, right? We literally go all in. And going all in is not, sometimes there are things that are not worth going all in for, right? Sometimes there are people who are not worth your time with going all in. It's not healthy for you. You shouldn't go all in. But when you know there's something that you're being called to do or create or birth or, rally behind, if you don't have the result that you want yet, I would ask, have you gone all in? And are your thoughts, your actions, your words aligned with the result that you say you want? Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is yes, and we need more time to stay the course. Some dreams are not created in 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. Some things take years, right, to create. And sometimes we have to commit to the long game, right? Raising kids, it's a long game. It's a long game. Creating substantial change in our life, healing from different like medical things. Sometimes that is a long game. You're not going to receive the result that you want in 6 months, right? When we're talking about creating a new paradigm, I've been working on healing my gut for like the last year, really like intently, and doing like the things I don't want to do. Cutting out the things and like bringing in the things. It's been a journey. And I've seen over time the little wins. And the increased immunity and the ease of certain things that I've struggled with my gut. But if I had wanted to see this like radical change in 30 days or I was going to quit, I would have quit. I didn't see much change. I'm like, what's the use? What's the use with the time, the money, the supplements, the doing all this stuff? Why? But I had done enough research to know the long game was worth the investment of the short term inconvenience, hassle. It was worth it. Our gut is a nervous system that controls so much. And so, whenever you are committed to something that you know is worth it for you, the decision to go all in is worth it. Doesn't mean we don't have rough days, doesn't mean that we don't have rough weeks or months, to be honest, but the payoff is worth it, with you becoming who you want, with you creating a legacy for yourself, with you creating a meaningful life that matters to you. Not every one of us wants like an Oprah kind of life or that kind of a success story. Some people to live a healed, whole, fulfilling kind of life is all that a lot of people want. And it's possible. It's all I wanted for so long, decades, right? And I have been able to create it with determination, with decision, with perseverance, and with getting back up every time life kicked me in the face, right? There has to be a level of grit in order to achieve our goal, in order to leave the toxic relationship or job or eating habits or spending habits or whatever the thing is, right? We have to really come into that adult part of ourselves who like does the boring stuff, who returns the emails, who cleans the house, who pays their taxes, who does the boring things that don't feel like there's a huge payoff. We have to come into that part of ourselves who can lead us towards the thing that we want most, not just the thing that we want right now. So when we really bring um, normalization in, when we really bring validation into, there may have been some ridiculous things that happened to me, to you, to all of us that created really significant trauma. That very well might be the case. It was for me. And there came a point where I had to say, I have to make a decision with what kind of life I want for myself. And I am determined to do whatever I need to do to create it. If it's walk over hot coals, if it's go cry my heart out in the jungle in Costa Rica, been there, done that, like whatever it takes, I need to do it. If it's praying for hours, if it's changing how I think, how I eat, how I talk, what I watch, like whatever it takes, I'm going to do it because I want the result. I want the result. And for me personally, um, I decided from a very young age that the amount of pain that I was in, physically, emotionally, like that much pain had to have a greater purpose. That I couldn't just be in that pain and be in that like um mental just like hell. It had to be for a greater purpose than just to have experienced pain. There had to be something more. I was committed to finding what that was, no matter what it took. And so I encourage you, if you feel like there's something that's calling you to something greater, if it's something you want to create, if it's how you want to live your life, if it's what you're wanting to put your time and energy into, if it's having a healthier relationship with yourself, with a partner, with whatever it is, if it's being a more present, grounded, healthy parent, whatever it is, if it's really just healing and having peace in your life with whatever time you have left, no matter what it is, know that you can get there. You can achieve it. You are probably closer than you realize. It may only take you really deciding to go all in and then have accountability around that to create the result that you want. And so for healers, therapists, coaches, even folks who are on their own personal development journey, who are wanting more trauma informed approaches, who are wanting ways to support your client, your audience, your community, in creating results, but within a trauma informed framework. We will be talking more about the Safe Trauma Practice program that's going to help you to do that. It's going to help you to really go through the stages of healing your own life, your own history, and then really being able to take those same tools and help your people create that change for themselves and applying that to how you do business, to how you create containers, to how you really support people in ethical ways, in highly integrous ways, and in holistic ways, right? Because the truth of the matter is, so many people are seeing through this, like, do it quick, fast, and in a hurry. Are there ways to create quantum leaps? Yes, there are. They've worked. I've done it for myself. I've helped, hundreds and hundreds of people to do that in their life. But the reality is also, when we create big leaps like that, there are growing pains. It's not always comfortable. Sometimes we do put so much unnecessary pressure and stress on our nervous system because it has to calibrate to that leap as well. And so, steady, continuous progress often is the better way to grow. And when you do that consistently, the quantum leaps will begin to happen on their own without overtaking your nervous system and taking you out of the game, to have to integrate all of that. And so there's not one size fits all. There's not a perfect way for everyone. It really is nuanced, and based on the person, what they want, how their system works, what's important to them, how much they are okay with discomfort. All of those things come into play, but there is a framework that can support you in creating the result that you want, the changes that you want, the life that you want, in a sustainable way. And I'm so excited to share that with you. This month, it's coming soon. And so we are so grateful that you're here. Thank you for your time, for being here. Thank you, Carrie, for being on. If you're on the replay, hashtag replay so that I know that you're here. And I would love to hear, what's the decision that you know you're being called to make in your life right now? Most of us have an area where we know that we're being called to make a shift, make a commitment, really go all in, burn the boats. I'd love to hear what that is for you, and celebrate you and kind of see what your plan is in committing to that, taking aligned action, and creating accountability for yourself. Because the truth is, we can make all the declarations in the world, but if there's no plan in place for how we're going to follow through, how we're going to really see it through, it can burn out, right? Like, as quickly as a birthday candle. And the momentum that we thought we had can be gone. And so I'd love to hear your aligned action, what your decision is. And if I can be of support, I'm happy to do that for you. I will see you tomorrow for day 16 of 30 days of safe trauma practice. I love you so much. I'm so grateful for you. I can't wait to share more trauma informed things with you tomorrow.